It's important that the joints fit tightly. This tells me that I need to trim a little bit off the side walls of each one of these pins. It's apparently really hard to do without blocking up the camera angle. That's getting pretty close. This part of the tail, these parts of the tail are a little bit too high up. So I just trimmed the two shoulders here and the middle part here a little bit. Feels pretty tight right now. There's still a little bit of overhang that I can feel at the tip here. Now I don't want to trim these anymore. What I'm going to do is compress the fibers on the walls here just by taking my chisel and pulling it up like this. And when the glue is added onto here, that's going to expand the fiber. And that's going to give us a super tight joint. We also want to try to keep gaps at a minimum. I'm feeling that there's still a little bit of a protrusion. The two tails are both protruding slightly off the top, and this part of the pin is protruding slightly. This part of the pin here is flush, and this part of the half pin is actually beneath this little thing here. So I need to fix that, and usually something like that happens is because there's a little gap there. It means there's a little too much stuff there, and that side is not sitting down perfectly. If you look on this side, it's pretty even. There may be a little bit of work that needed to be done right on this side. So I'm going to take this apart and take a little bit off of here and a little bit off of here. So we try to get this pin to protrude the same amount as this pin here. Fit is pretty good. I think this piece of wood is twisted or something. After a bit of fiddling, the joint's going to turn out to be pretty tight. This gap here is going to get filled in by glue once this is glued together. It's important that the sidewall contacts are nice and flush. That's where most of the strength are going to be. If you look on the top here, again, we want this to have very small gaps, if any at all. Try to minimize gaps here and here. But generally we want to minimize the amount of gaps that's in this. So this part is sitting pretty flush, and this part is sitting pretty flush. Whenever I glue, I want to get a decent amount of glue all over the joint. It's particularly important to get a good amount of glue on the faces that are going to meet. So I'm going to put glue onto the tails, and I got to also put glue onto the pins. Just make sure I get a nice, good, thick coat onto the facing grains. I'm going to put glue onto this end grain here as well. But most of the strength are going to come from the facing grains. Then I'm just going to stick the two together. I'm going to wipe off the excess with a wet paper towel. Once the glue is all dried, I'm going to plane this joint nice and flat. See, there's a little bit of raise here. And I'm going to plane basically in this direction to avoid any breakouts on the edge here. Same down here, I'm going to plane in this direction towards where there is support against this back edge. The plane I'm using is a Stanley number 4. I bought this one off of eBay for I think $20. There's excess glue here. I'm just going to leave it because if I try to take this out with a chisel, a lot of the times it's going to help take a chunk of the wood out as well. But the plane will take care of all of this. So I just finished planing these pins here, and there's a mark from the marking gauge left over here. And you can plane that away if you feel like it. You see these tear outs here because as I was planing in this direction, it's actually going against the grain of this piece of wood. I'm going to fix this tear out when I'm planing the other end here, when I'm planing in this direction, going with the grain over here, and get this nice and flat. So here are the finished dovetails. I hope you guys found this demonstration to be useful. As a point of reference, if you've never cut dovetails before, I'm going to show you my first set of dovetails. I believe I cut them in 2013. It was the first time I've ever tried cutting dovetails. And I used techniques that are very different from the ones I showed you. So here is the very first 2 dovetails ever cut. You can see that one of the problem here is this angle is a little too extreme. The other is that this is pine. It's cheap wood, but it's not conditioned well for dovetailing, and it's difficult to cut. And there are some gaps you see here. So this is number 1, number 2. So there's already quite a bit of improvement going from 1 to 2. Number 3. So it's getting a lot better just by the 3rd time. And I think this is 4. I don't know. 3 and 4 could be switched. They look very similar. I think the key is just focus and a will to do it. There's no magic bullet. I don't think there is a magical technique. You just have to practice it and really focus on the technique, feeling. I guess there's a lot of feel to it. I don't know. It's hard to explain. And I think it's important to see how other people do it and learn from them, and then sort of take their techniques and turn it into something that works for you. So I gathered most of this technique from probably 6, 7, maybe even 8, 10 different sources, just by studying how other people do it. And then I sort of apply that onto what I was doing and sort of took it and made it so that it works for me. The important thing is to practice and to really want to do it and to focus on what you're doing, and have patience, give it time. I don't think it takes that many cuts to produce really high quality dovetails. I don't think it takes years of practice either. I think it just takes a will and focus and determination.